Liverpool have so much quality. There are players who in any given moment can hurt anyone.
So many.
And that's the problem. It's not just that you have one or two to shut down. And this is what we saw with Arsenal last season. They had Odegaard and Saka. And if one of them was missing through injury, you could shut down the other one. And that was Arsenal's weakness. Liverpool have so many options who, even when they're not playing well, can settle things.
We back like Naomi Osaka after a weekend featuring a heavyweight stalemate which witnessed discord at FS Scouser DTX say Arsenal surrender their we didn't lose against the traditional Big Six trophy. Pep Guardiola lost 2-1 to Brighton in the Premier League game, which was like a remake of Groundhog Day. Manchester United dug so admirably deep to outlast Burnley in a game that felt a little bit like an early season 6-pointer. Chelsea survived Fulham fans chanting at their players, "You being sold" in the morning. Spurs back to reality. But Everton fans, I don't even know who we are anymore. Jack Grealish has made us good at football. This is not why we watch. Essentially, we're about to find out if August football is a lie. Then what is September? No better person to ask than my friend in pod, the Vacation King, gelato apologist, Fresh Prince of Harrogate, author of the quite brilliant weekly newsletter, The Correspondent, on the Men in Blazers Media Network. Subscribe now. It's Mr. Rory Smith.
How you doing, Rog?
Oh, well, I'm lost, to be candid. The transfer window just shut, Raw. Record $4 billion spent. How on earth are we going to kill the time until it opens again January 1st? Do we, have to actually watch football or something weird now?
Football's very boring compared to transfers. Transfers live in your phone all of the time. Football, it's only on at certain times. Some of it's quite inconvenient. It's maybe best consumed on an actual television. Transfers are the future. I think we are reaching the point. We've already talked, Roger, about the post-results reality.
Yeah.
Do we even need to play the games anymore?
Why? What games? What are you talking about? Post-truth, post-results. Football's weird and fringe. Transfers where it's at. I mean, you joke about the future, but living this quite bombastic transfer window. Mad record transfers, mass transfers, want-away stays. I mean, so much drama. They're like really impressive feats like Brentford selling Brian and Bumo, Johan Wieser, Ivan Toney, Ollie Watkins, Syed Barama, Neil Mopey, 10x what they paid for them, are like barely discussed. But man, transfers do feel bigger than football right now, Raw, because they never end. They're like always on. And I've realised, watching it, they're almost perfect fodder for how a TikTok audience imbibes, well, anything right now, 24/7, which football desperately wants to be, but can never be because, hamstrings, annoying bloody hamstrings. The games used to be once a week. They're now pretty much twice a week. They're now year-round. But even at that pace, they're like old-school TV shows that come out, weekly basis or whatever. You can't throw off enough content from football. But transfer rumours are almost like the iShow speeds of content spigots.
It sounds like we're joking, but I think you're absolutely right. It does feel as though it's not just that there are two strands to being a football fan now, like the actual games and following the transfer-y stuff. It feels like the transfer side of it is maybe more important, more all-consuming than the football side of it. Like the football almost gets in the way. And there's one other thing, Rog. I agree with you completely about, like, it's perfect for a social media audience, whether that's TikTok, Reels, whether it's Twitter. And, a lot of this stuff does still happen on Twitter. It's the one thing. I mean, Elon Musk is not a football fan, I don't think, but he should probably be quite grateful that football transfer rumours worked so well in that format, better than I think they do on TikTok or Instagram. But the other thing that's really important to reflect in this, it's free. It's a form of fandom that is free. As long as you've got a phone, or I guess a laptop, or a computer of some sort, you can follow this stuff. You can't do that with actual football. You have to generally at some point pay someone to watch it, even if you're just paying for a drink in a pub. If you're a teenager who doesn't have access to your own kind of stream of income, who is reliant on your parents having enough money to have subscriptions, you can follow transfer rumours. That can be the way you engage with your club for nothing. That makes it much more democratic.
I mean, transfer rumours also essentially tick the boxes of football. They allow you to both fume with anger. They allow you to feel hope. Oh, the Messiah is always coming. In a way, football did. Talking to you, Raw, I realise our future, just talking about, the the football. We're almost like making carriages when horses and traps are about to go out of business and be replaced by the Model T Ford of transfer rumours. God, we are so old school. This is so old-fashioned, talking about, the football. We do have a lot to get through. I do need to acknowledge, and we'll talk about some of the changes game by game, but what Liverpool did, spending 541 million in this window. Yes, they sold really, really well also. Like, what was it, 250 million worth of outgoings. But a record spend for a Premier League club is truly fascinating. It almost seems like they're more than trying to win the title. It almost feels like there's a dynastic aspiration at play, going all in at the casino table when they see City faltering, United broken, Arsenal. I think they feel they can force Arsenal into transition. They are going all in at a time when multiple threats are weakened, driving up the value of the club. This feels fascinating to me. It feels like they're planning for more than just this season. This feels like a make everything possible kind of moment for your club, for an ownership who we know have taken their time to work out how to compete. And then it seems to overcome nation state owners, oligarchs. This is a bold reach for almost a dynastic crown.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is really interesting in lots of different ways. I don't think it's quite as out of character as people have maybe presented. I think if you speak to people involved with that approach in baseball, they will always tell you, and this is the kind of credo that FSG hew to, that you pay the going rate for generation-defining talent. And in Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak, they clearly feel, we'll find out whether they're right, Rog, but they clearly feel as though those two are worth those outlays. I think the other thing to remember with Liverpool is they do look at things in the round in a way that it seems like Brighton and Brentford do, but maybe some of the other big teams habitually haven't. So they didn't spend very much last year. People have made that connection. Just Federico Chiesa. I can't remember. I don't know if they were in profit on transfers last year, but they basically had a spend of zero. This is for one of commercially the most successful clubs in the world, and I wonder what impact this summer has for next, because it looks to me an awful lot like this is the first salvo in future-proofing Liverpool against an era where there is no Mohamed Salah. That would be my instinctive reading of it, is that they've strengthened now when the players are available. When Wirtz was going from Leverkusen, when Isak, they thought they could get him out of Newcastle, just about, because at some point they know, either next summer, maybe the summer after, Salah will go. And this is the start of what Liverpool will look like when that happens.
I thought they were just taking his loss in AFCON really, really, really seriously. We will talk more Liverpool in just a second. Remember, people, we will not know who exactly won the transfer window until, the actual football is played. But before we get to it, we've got to add to the most important conversation of football over the last week, which is about, you may remember from last week's pod, the incredible poetry of the football phrase, to be so angry as a fan that your piss is boiling. Great friend of the pod, at Eerie Godless Evil Stuff, wrote under our YouTube to say, in Denmark, we use the phrase, bringa mit piss I kog, often, which directly translates to, brings my piss to a boil. So it's not just England, Raw. And I want to know, are you a writer who treats words so seriously, from a nation who once brought the world Shakespeare, Jane Austen, Charles Dickens? Are you proud of your modern day poetic exports?
The phrase boiling piss, no, I hate it. I can't stand it. It sounds to me like the Danes, maybe, if that's like an established phrase in a way that it maybe isn't in England, do the Danes maybe need more cranberry juice? Is there something going on there? Have they got...
I don't know.
Is there a cystitis thing happening in Denmark? I don't know.
I'd love to know. I will say, when I read this for the first time last week, I thought, if I told you that English people didn't invent it, but this is ripped straight from Norse mythology.
Oh, maybe.
One of the gods, bringa mit piss I kog, we'd be like, okay, respect. I like it.
Just so we're clear, does everyone's thinking this, Rog?
Yeah.
Bringa mi piss I kog does not sound like it translates as my piss is boiling. It sounds like something else.
My Danish is about as good as, Thomas Graveson's English. But, mate, can I just say thank you to your Eerie Godless Evil Stuff? It sounds so much more romantic in your language. Talking about my language, I want to raise a toast to kick this off. My first Michelob Ultra of the day, raising it to the Seattle Sounders, who beat Lionel Messi's Inter Miami 3-0 to win the League's Cup this weekend in a quite unhinged match, which ended with Luis Suarez Luis Suarezing to steal all the headlines in a quite unsavoury way. You may have seen him spit in the face of a Sounders staff member post-game, but that should not detract from the Sounders' immense achievement. Forever coach Brian Smetzer, I admire him so much, and in this game drew up a perfect tactical plan to shut down Lionel Messi and win his fourth major trophy before a quite delirious crowd of nearly 70,000 fans. Game capped off with a moment of wonder. Schmetzer had quipped pre-game, Messi's arguably the best player the world's ever seen, but we have Paul Rothrock. Rothrock is a local lad, fought his way through the club youth system. The club before the game offered trades of Messi jerseys. They would give you a Rothrock jersey if you were so inclined. And thus, of course it had to be Rothrock who put the game away with the third goal in the 89th minute. Epic Greek poetry. God bless Seattle. As my friend Hurt Gomez tweeted post-game, there's no better representation in American soccer than the Seattle Sounders, NASL, USL and MLS, founded in 1974. Culture, history, trophies. I just say Sounders, huge love to all of you in the Emerald City. There is none finer. Raw, incredible.
It really, really wonderful to see in lots of different ways. And obviously we're not for a second excusing what Luis Suarez apparently did in the course of that game. But I think it's something really heartening to see, because obviously it all happens overnight here, to see the reports coming out of kind of disgraceful scenes between the teams, players kind of various bits of fisticuffs, a little bit of a farrago on the pitch, lots of spite, lots of boiling stuff, Rog. I know you're meant to say, oh, it's terrible, it's awful, isn't it awful for the sport? But it kind of shows how much it means, how much it matters. It's not what we want. I think that's a bit silly to say, but I don't think any European would look at that and think, oh, this is what an awful business. Europeans will look at that and think, oh, the Americans have got it now. They understand what it's meant to be like.
That's me. You saying this was actually an incredible, great moment for American football.
Yeah, triumph for American soccer culture.
Luis Suarez, if you're listening, when you go up before whatever body over here charges you for your quite despicable act, you could, in your defence, try and plead, bringa mit piss I cog. Just tell them. They'll understand.
Luis Suarez has made less likely defences for things he's done on football pitches, Rog, than that.
That's fine. I'm going to try that with my wife when I'm next in trouble. Oh, bringa mit piss mit cog.
I don't think you should say that to your wife, Rog. I think she'll take it the wrong way.
Yeah, I think probably. God bless. Yeah. I'll try it in the English. By the way, send us that phrase if you use it in any other global languages. I really want to track down the etymology. We're doing it for the storehouse of science, not for my own entertainment. But quick word from MIB World HQ, home of the Men in Blazers Discord channel. Well, I will say, in-match conversation this weekend broke new levels. As we say, football is better with friends. Come and join us now at the link in the show notes. 2 opportunities, though, to be with us in real life. Incoming. First, New York City. We're doing a live show with New York's Knicks stars Carl Anthony Towns and great friend of this show, Josh Hart. He's proper Chelsea on the night of September the 18th at Terminal 5. If you're in town, come and be with us. Raise a pint. Thanks to our friends at Walmart for that beauty. We're also just 1 week away from celebrating the footballing kingdom that is Columbus, Ohio. City that's written itself into the heart of American football history and culture. Can't wait to celebrate all of that with you live on stage at Kemba on September the 8th with Clint Dempsey, Hurt Gomez, Columbus Crew head coach Wilfred Nancy. God, I can't wait to meet him. And my old friend, the Frenzy King, Frankie Hayduck. It'll be an incredible night of football, joy, communion before the US take on Japan. Come and be with us, Columbus. Tickets for both shows are in the show notes. And as I said, football is better with friends. And to the football raw, let's start with that quite curious heavyweight bout at Anfield on Sunday. Liverpool won, Arsenal 0. We were told this was going to be De Niro and Pacino in heat, the first epic rumble of the season. First versus second for the last campaign, the 2 big spenders. Arsenal 10 months unbeaten on the road. Liverpool, I think, had lost just 3 out of their previous 81 at Anfield. Raw, we were salivating before this one, I think quite rightly, before kickoff, but the action was kind of grinding. It was grapple football. Anfield bellowed. Arsenal tilted possession, but they didn't do a lot with it. I think Liverpool had just 2 touches in the Arsenal area first half, no shots on target. Arsenal just kept trying to spring Gyökeres and Madueke to little effect. Gyökeres just 6 touches in the first half. He was bodied by Konate. Ultimately, This turned into like risk management was what we were watching. Both sides trying to master their vulnerabilities. Was this about two teams in that first half who feared losing more than wanting to win? With Liverpool still gelling, Arsenal possibly still adjusting to the 4th-minute loss of Saliba? Was it one of those games that matter so much, and as much as we dream about them raw, we just have to sit through the players trying to locate the fuse?
Yeah, it felt a lot like, and you'll have to be of a certain age to remember this really, a lot like what big games used to look like, Rog. That in as recently kind of as the mid-2000s, when you got two teams who were title contenders, maybe especially early in the season, when the cost of a defeat is much greater than the benefit of victory, you got two teams who were very cagey, very cautious. It wasn't that they set out not to win. It was that their plan was to take as little risk as possible while still trying to win. I think that's what you saw. My first instinct watching it was that Liverpool and Arsenal both looked really wary of each other. But over the last kind of 48 hours, as I've had time to digest it while simultaneously thinking about endless transfers, I'm not sure that's entirely right. I think Arsenal have a defined style in these games, and it's completely legitimate, and it generally works for them. They've got a great record against the traditional big six, as you point out. But they did look inhibited in some way. They looked like they were cautious. I think, to be honest, for an hour, Liverpool just didn't play very well. I think that was the difference. That Alexis McAllister doesn't look fit. Still coming back from injury. I think Liverpool struggled to do anything at all of note. Admittedly, against a really good Arsenal team. I mean, Arsenal make it very hard for anyone to play. Liverpool just weren't very good. In the final half hour, whether it was because Arsenal kind of lost their grip a little bit, whether tiredness set in, whether Liverpool found their rhythm, I actually thought Liverpool looked a little bit more like a team who had an idea of how to win the match in a way that maybe Arsenal didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the first half was such a snooze, such an anticlimax, really. My mind started to wander. I was like, we should just get the children out, get Max Dowman and Rio on the field for like a little child dance-off, or like get them to do football freestyle tricks, or whatever the version of America's Most Talented Kid is. I would have bitten your arm off for that.
I think that wasn't necessarily a first half that either manager would have been upset by. Arsenal had control of the game without really creating anything. It looked a lot like, maybe this is unfair, looked a little bit like their game plan was to kind of gain territory almost. And this sounds very insulting, Rog. It looked a little bit like rugby, to be perfectly honest, which is not something I enjoy saying about a football match. They looked like they wanted to gain territory to get set pieces. They looked like they thought they could hurt Liverpool in kind of formulaic ways, in set moments. They thought we can get them. They didn't create a vast amount from open play. And as I say, in that first half in particular, Liverpool started out a little bit disjointed, which we've come to expect the first 3 games of the season, lots of new signings, all that stuff. And from there until about the hour mark, they went from disjointed down to flat and then on to just quite bad. That was the map of Liverpool's performance.
I mean, there were moments when I did start to hallucinate. I was like... I wrote my game notes. Fascinating tactical battle. Arsenal out hairstyling Liverpool, who are countering by unfurling the better cologne. Too close to call. That kind of wraps up the first half for me. One player who wasn't having the impact that we thought he would immediately yet is Florian Wirtz. It's still too early to judge him. But in this game, first half, he was winning the ball a lot. But his decision-making in the compressed time and space of the Premier League, I'm not saying it was at Daffy Klassen levels, because that's very damning, but Slot said post-game with a laugh, he said, "Welcome to the Premier League." I don't think he knew he could have cramp in so many places.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because the Bundesliga is not slow. The Bundesliga is basically two teams running up and down the pitch constantly all of the time. It's been an interesting test for Wirtz, because the first 3 games, Bournemouth, who go man-to-man everywhere and will just chase you around the pitch. You then have Newcastle, who are probably the most physical team in England. And then Arsenal, who are the best organised defence. So I think they have been 3 very challenging first games for him. But again, what I would say is after McAllister goes off and Curtis Jones comes on, when Liverpool start to have a bit more control and start to move forward up the pitch, Wirtz suddenly came into his own. And in that last half hour, you saw little flashes. And it still is, you're right, Rog, it's only flashes at the moment of what he brings. It's interesting, around Liverpool there has been no kind of expression of concern about his performances. No one is saying we think he'll need time to adapt. I think they understand that tricky opponents, different league, culturally different, will take time, but they're obviously seeing enough to make them think this is going to work.
By the way, I could not agree more with you. I think, like, genuinely, I'd say that Liverpool social media is at a stage where they're sending out little parties to bombard anybody who does mock Wirtz's play so far. They're at that stage in the acceptance to bargaining scale. Far too early to tell, and Godspeed. I think he's going to be a phenomenal footballer who will make us all eat our words. But this game has been a draw the last 3 seasons. Into the second half, did feel like Arteta at a certain point, no Saka available, just dropped into let's get out of here alive mode, which was honestly, as a neutral was bloody frustrating. Because this Liverpool backline, we know it's vulnerable. Arsenal's bench was the subject of all the pre-game chatter, the strength, the depth. We were told it was stronger. But as you say, there was something about Anfield which makes it come alive. And Liverpool stepped up in that last 20 minutes. Arsenal, got to say, they remained robust. Let the history books remind us that before the moment, I think the Arsenal backline had given up just 0.10 expected goals on target before the Szoboszlai dream strike. Arteta later admitted he realised the game would be decided either by a mistake or by a moment of total magic. And thus, 83 minutes, really why I love football, reason number 627, because you can watch for 82 minutes of utter drudgery, and then something just insanely stunning and nipple-tingling happens. I think it was Jones who was toppled by Zubimendi. Free kick was like 30 yards out. No big deal beforehand. We had Salah, we had Szoboszlai, we had Gakpo chatting around, hand over my mouth. And it was the swarthy Hungarian who stepped up. And what happened next? I think John Champion captured it best in comms. He said, Szoboszlai made the ball dance. And it did. It swerved. It dipped. It flew. I think scientifically one of the finest free kicks, technically, that you'll see. I spoke to Mo Salah last week. And I asked him, how do Liverpool summon the mental ability to step up and win games when other teams would just be frustrated and take the draw? He said you just get that with experience. You learn that to panic and to feel bad is just not worth it, which is about life as much as it is about football. But he swore the team didn't work on that collectively. What are we seeing them do it again and again and again? Late. Win. Is it alchemy?
After that first game of the season against Bournemouth, Andoni Iraola, who is a wonderful coach and seems like a wonderful man. You've interviewed him, Rog. You will know that better than I do. He said, rather than kind of feeling sorry for himself that Bournemouth had played really, really well at Anfield and come away beaten 4-2, he just said, kind of alluded to the fact that, like, there are holes in this Liverpool system. It's still a kind of work in progress. But he said that Liverpool have so much quality that at any point they can beat you. And I think that might be what they're going to ride on for a little while, until the system beds in, until everyone's familiar with what they're doing. Across that Liverpool team, there are players who in any given moment can hurt anyone.
So many.
And that's the problem. It's not just that you have one or two to shut down. And this is what we saw with Arsenal last season, say, that they had Odegaard and Saka. And if one of them was missing through injury or if one of them wasn't playing very well, you could shut down the other one, and that was Arsenal's weakness. They've tried to address that in the transfer window. I think they have. I think we will see the fruits of that labour over the course of the season. Liverpool have so many options who, even when they're not playing well, can settle things. So even in that game, and look, the goal itself is absolutely a moment of wonder, and it, like a genuinely extraordinary free kick. Gary Neville compared it to a Cristiano Ronaldo free kick, and I saw someone say on X, it's like a Cristiano Ronaldo free kick with the one difference that it went in.
It's a Cristiano Ronaldo free kick in Cristiano Ronaldo's imagination. Or as he imagines them before they hit the first man in the wall, right?
I would say this, Rog, because I am biased, but I don't see how you can see anyone scoring from 30 yards in the red of Liverpool's number 8 shirt and compare them to Cristiano Ronaldo. That was a Steven Gerrard free kick. That's what that was. Hit perfectly, absolutely. I mean, maybe a little bit of a question mark over Raya's footwork, I suppose, but just impossible to say. But you could hear it hit the post. It is a piece of genius. But even before that, there were 3 occasions where Liverpool worked an opening for Salah. And Salah's touch let him down on all 3 of them. It was just, he sort of rolled it too far out of his feet. But any other day, 1, 2, maybe 3 of those go in. Mo Salah, edge of the box on his left foot. That's where you want him. And, all right, he's obviously not in the best of form at the moment. That's not a problem. Liverpool didn't play especially well. They came into it more in the last half hour. they still created 3 openings that more often than not might have given them the win. And I think that's the difference, that Arsenal, for all their possession, for all their control, didn't create anything from open play, and that's where the frustration for Arsenal sets in.
Yeah, you talk about Iraola just at the in defeat, just saying, "My lord, they have so much quality." You saw the goalkeeper version of that when that ball had flown in. David Raya just puffing out his cheeks. Gent was like, "Yeah, no human is saving that." It was just that startling a moment, a startling piece of technique, a startling moment of majesty. And then Liverpool shut the game down, which is incredible, really. Liverpool clean sheets had not been a thing. They bodied Gyökeres. Martinelli bullied out of the game from the off. Arsenal's only real threat throughout was Madueke cutting in on the right. I think Odegaard made a difference late. Eze in a fleeting what-if cameo. But Van Dijk was so aggressive. Konate and Kirkes, I'd say, more focused. Soboslai, goal aside, so unbelievably versatile out of position. As much as the win, Liverpool fans, you've got your rarely spotted clean sheet. That in its own way is ecstasy. But from an Arsenal perspective, I do think Arsenal fans are going to mourn the loss of invulnerability against the Big Six opposition, which has been a real thing. And the fact that they now have 2 weeks during the international break to mull over every iota of existential angst of this loss inflicted. This team who live by the set piece, being undone by the set piece. Arteta, knowing him, will agonise almost in a Dark Knight style of fashion during this break. First defeat against Big Six since April 2023. He's going to rue the injuries, which are beginning to tick-tock up. Second worst XG in open play this season his team have. The inability continued to win at Anfield. Perhaps a lack of ambition down the stretch will haunt him, which condemned Arsenal to continue their long black veil of not having won in Liverpool in 13 games. There's a lot for Arteta to ponder, which is never a good thing.
No, and I think you can take solace in the fact that Arsenal's fate this season won't be decided by whether they won or lost or drew at Anfield. The problem for Arsenal last season was the points they dropped in games they shouldn't have dropped points in. That's how you win the Premier League, is you beat all of the other teams and you don't make mistakes. I think from what we've seen this season so far, it will be quite an up and down Premier League because there are so many teams. The results we're going to talk about coming up, Rog. Bournemouth can go to Spurs and win. Brighton can beat Manchester City. It will be more like last season than it was than the season when Man City got 100 points or Liverpool and City got 99 and 98. There are lots of really good teams in the Premier League, and to win the league, you have to drop points against as few of them as possible. The issue for Arsenal, I think, is are they creative enough to win those games against the better teams when they're not playing well? Because there comes a point where, no matter how good your set-piece coach is, you'll run into a defence that's got Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate in it, and they manage to kind of stifle you. Or do you know what? Your delivery's not that great. Declan Rice's delivery from corners at Anfield wasn't brilliant. It is often amazing, but he had a bit of an off day. You need more than that. And I think the one little bit of doubt that's gathering around Arteta is, has he prioritised that solidity, that caution, that indomitability at the expense of the kind of creativity and freedom you need to beat all of those teams with the consistency that wins you league titles?
What is modern football? I only watch for the transfers and the set pieces. After the final whistle, Arne Slot walked to the Kop. What a moment. Liverpool fans just applauding him, heralding him. They broke out into an immediate chant of champions, champions. And I was like, are they talking about last season? Are they already talking about this season? We will see. Yet this weekend's marker means they picked up where they left off in the pre-Ibiza part of the season. They remain football's only perfect team, 9 points out of 9. Raw, all season long, yes, 3 games. We have said, do not read too much into August football, people. But we can, and we should let ourselves react to this win a little bit, right? It is a sign, can we say? It's an indicator, but not a conclusion.
Liverpool had a really hard start, Rog. And I know that sounds a little bit like partisanship, but Bournemouth are good. You'd expect to beat them at Anfield, but Bournemouth are a good team. Newcastle away is really tough, even leaving aside the whole Isak thing. St James's Park is not a place where Liverpool win easily, or haven't won easily in recent years. Very few teams do. And then Arsenal, it's first versus second in the third game of the season. That is a tough start. And Liverpool, I think if they'd come through it with 5 points, would probably have felt that was okay, to be honest. To get 9 is way beyond expectation. They're clearly not a finished artefact. They're still a work in progress. But the fact that they've beaten Newcastle, beaten Arsenal and beaten Bournemouth, riding their luck at times, that's quite an encouraging start. I guess the complication is you now have to chuck another player into the mix, don't you, Rog?
So let's talk about that. You talk about the finished artefact. I like the idea of Liverpool being an artefact, I got to tell you. But before the transfer deadline, I don't know if you've heard, Liverpool proceeded to finally free Isak for a quite exorbitant amount, 176 million, big ones. British record transfer, eclipsing the fee Chelsea paid Brighton for Moises Caicedo. Isak, huh? Who saw that coming? Hype merchants now wondering, is this the best transfer window in Premier League history? Isak, Ekitike, Wirtz, Frimpong, Kirkes, Leonie, Pexi. But below the Bants merchants and the tabloid headlines, what do you think is going on in Arne Slot's head in regards to how he's going to make them all get together? Again, I talked to Mo Salah on Friday. I asked him, because he's talked in the past, I said, how do you play with Luis Diaz? How do you play with Darwin Núñez? He gave me like a dossier, like Luis likes the ball played through to his left foot, like he knew the minute idiosyncrasies. He said, look, I've got to figure it out, and I haven't yet. Now he's got Isak as well. Yes, I joked earlier about he's just come into spell mode during the African Cup of Nations, but man, another focal point. Another player who's got that, in the NFL, they talk about the give me the damn ball mentality as opposed to like a selfless work together front three unit. How will it work, Raw? Because to me, it's almost like an NBA super team where everybody wants control of the basketball.
Yeah, and that's the risk. The risk is that you unbalance the side because there are too many focal points, effectively. Is it a team that's run by Florian Wirtz? Is he the main creative outlet? Is it designed, as Liverpool have been for the last couple of years, to make sure that Mo Salah gets the ball as close to the goal as possible? Is it designed to make sure that Isak is playing off the shoulder and being slipped through by Wirtz or McAllister or Gravenberch or Szoboszlai or whoever? I don't have the answer to that. I hope Arne Slot does, but I don't. The one thing that I keep thinking of, and this is, can I be self-indulgent for a little bit, Rog? Is that all right?
I think this whole show is, because we're talking about football, not transfer, so it's not really a public use, bro.
It's not what the people want.
Yeah.
A few years ago, when Antonio Conte won the Premier League with Chelsea, I went to see a man called Renzo Olivieri, who was an Italian coach, old Italian coach, who'd managed Roma and Cagliari and maybe a couple of the other bigger teams, but was now running Italy, or was then running Italy's coaching academy, Coverciano, which is where they all have to go and study, do their thesis, learn the ropes of how to be an Italian manager. Coverciano churns out these incredible managers constantly. It's a really academic approach to football coaching. And we were talking, it turned out that Olivieri, who at that point must have been in his 70s, was still coaching a team. He had like a 7th division team nearby that he coached, and it was what he used as his guinea pigs for all of his ideas. And he told me, this would be 2017, he told me that what he was working on at the moment with these students and doctors and labourers who formed this amateur team was that he thought attacks would soon be 3 players standing very close to each other in a formation, so not like a wide right winger or a wide left winger. Everyone would be inside the 18-yard box, effectively, that width of the pitch, and interchanging positions constantly. He thought that was the future. And I think if you look at PSG, that's what they do. I think Renzo Olivieri was right, that the future of attack is not striker, right winger, left winger. It is 3 forwards who can play anywhere. Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, Doué and or Barcola, they change positions constantly. One's not the left winger or the right winger. They just move around as they wish, as they've been taught. I think what Liverpool will do is something similar. I think Ekitike and Isak in particular will interchange positions. It might be that Ekitike kind of starts on the left and Isak through the middle, but I don't think they will finish there. I don't think they'll be hidebound by those positions. Wirtz, I think, will end up playing a similar role to Odegaard, who's kind of a number 10, but he's enough of a presser that he gets involved with the dirty work. And Salah will have that opportunity to hold his position wide on the right and come inside and interchange with Isak and Ekitike. I think that's the idea. I don't think any of us know whether it'll work.
The future's not 3 switching strikers, it's tiny, tiny shin pads. You heard it here, lads. Irrespective, incredible days to be a Red. I will say, when I watched that Szoboszlai free kick, I wrote, yet again, by accident, being a Liverpool fan, occasionally I have an out-of-body, non-blue nose experience, and I wrote in my notes, it does look so bloody fun. Slightly less fun right now. being a Manchester City fan, this result, Brighton 2, Manchester City 1. I was at the Oasis show, like the whole of New York, in MetLife this weekend. Best City performance by some stretch, the way New York City Roses want to do the Poznan. But after the shot loss to Tottenham last week, Pep rolled down to Brighton, the very place he'd suffered his fourth straight defeat last year. And Aura, in a way, he spent 10 months and $460 million trying to recover. But the one player they can't live without, Rodri, was back. First start in nearly a year. Incredible to see him. As City, this stat is incredible. Sought to win away for a team that finished in the top half of the table last season for the first time in more than a year, which is incredible. Here, they tried to shake off the flatness and openness that doomed them against Spurs. They needed early young James Trafford, who retained his place in goal after flapping around against Tottenham, made a fine fingertip save to smother low from Matoma. This was Erling Haaland's 100th Premier League appearance. He missed a couple of close range finders early on, but then pounced after Bob and Marmoush danced through the gut of the Seagulls backline. 100th game, 88th goal, 9 more than the next gent, the prolific Alan Shearer, 20 more than anyone else. What was amazing in the moment, he barely celebrated, which made it seem like more were going to be coming, but instead 61st minute, quadruple Brighton substitution, seized control of the game. Brighton started to cut a very suddenly flat looking City apart. Will outshot them 11-3, and coming back first through James Milner, the only player left in football to be born within I think 20 years of Tim Ream. That is how old he is. Struck home a penalty, did the beautiful Diogo Jota celebration in honour of his friend who's number 20 he'd taken on this season in his honour. We talked about him last week. We can't talk about him enough. Second youngest Premier League goal scorer ever. This made him the second oldest Premier League goal scorer ever. Raw, this career arc is just superlative. Jen's gone from like being a wonderkin to essentially the footballing Betty White. It is marvellous.
Yeah, people forget what Milner was like when he first came through at Leeds. He was Rio and Ramoa. He was Max Dowman. He was that sort of player. And to see the way it's his adaptability, his versatility, the way he's transformed himself through the ages is incredibly admirable. I don't think he's at Brighton does he expects to play every week. I think he's there and he knows he's there because of the standards he sets, the example he sets for the younger players around him. And yet he can still come on and do a job and fight and compete in a Premier League game against one of the best teams in the world. That is testament to his dedication and his longevity, but it's also testament to his talent. And I think that bit maybe gets overlooked a bit.
It is amazing. I mean, we were told child actors are meant to go off the rails, right? Meant to lose their mind. This gent just keeps on going. Love this stat. Milner is the oldest penalty scorer in Premier League history. 39 years, 239 days old. And the goalkeeper he scored against, Jimmy Trafford, was born exactly 1 month before Milner made his Premier League debut in 2002. Just live on, you incredible king. He is so unbelievably inspiring. And as Brighton began to attack at will, and then the moment, Ruta laid the ball off to Matoma, Fede speeding Gruder, held the ball up, Duke Trafford to the ground, dumped Ryan Ait-Nouri onto his arse, and then rolled lethally, bottom left. And the big surprise was, it was not a surprise to witness Brighton coming back from behind to shock Manchester City again. Pep Guardiola's second successive loss down on the South Coast will be an utter bloody agony, equivalent of him seeing both a rake and a banana skin raw and just be like, you know what, I'm going to jump on them both. Credit Fabian Hürzeler hugely. He's got this team so tactically, so mentally primed. They're well drilled. Hürzeler, we talk about Milner. Hürzeler, I think, is barely older than Max Dowman, but he just keeps working out a way to tactically outsmart Pep Guardiola. 32 years old, unbeaten against the great Pep. Raw, football, increasingly a young man's game, even in the coaching area.
Yeah, and there is an element now where you start to wonder whether Guardiola, who's talked a lot about how there's a new generation of coaches sort of starting to emerge that might overtake him, you do wonder increasingly whether he's got the answers for the questions he's being asked. And that is extraordinary to say of Pep Guardiola, who is arguably the greatest manager of all time, certainly the greatest manager of his generation. He is coming up against challenges that he seems, I don't know, not unable to meet, but that first performance of the season against Wolves where we thought, okay, City are back, that's undone immediately because Spurs go to the Etihad and have a go at Manchester City. Brighton were outplayed for an hour, but clearly thought as long as we stay in this game for long enough, we will get our chances, and they did, and they took them. And there has been from the first 3 games of the season. Maybe it's too soon as well, Rog. Maybe we shouldn't be too harsh. Maybe we shouldn't expect Guardiola to have an instant answer. But they've lost 2 of their first 3 games of the season. It doesn't look like that aura is about to come back. And the problem for City is that the longer it's not there, the more teams will look at them and think we can get something here, which is what happens to Manchester United.
It's utterly true, man. I mean, your aura is almost like trust. Once it's gone, it takes so long to earn it back. I love your idea that Pep doesn't know the answers to the questions that the young manager are asking him, like they're asking him TikTok language questions. Like, what does cat mean, Pep?
What is skibbity?
Yeah, it's just like, Calvin Phillips asked me, what is skibbity? I have no idea. Like, he literally doesn't know. But I think more complicated is he's got so many bloody players who are trying to all learn Pep's deeply complicated demands. And you almost see in that second half a lack of a clear idea of football, which was astonishing for Manchester City. Donnarumma has arrived on the last day of the transfer window, an arrival which I think can only muddy up the who is the number one at Manchester City debate. We will see lots to discuss there. When you think of the top 10 goalkeepers with their feet, which is not just what Pep Guardiola wants, but he pioneered, in getting rid of Joe Hart. He pioneered the ball-playing goalkeeper. Donnarumma is not that. It is going to be a fascinating story, and Manchester United are next after the break. Talking of Manchester United, United 3, Burnley 2. Oh, Schadenfreude and Sadis, go home, nothing to see here. We'll say, watching Ruben Amorim, who admitted he was thinking of packing it in after his night of horrors midweek, as United lost against 4-tier Grimsby Town in a quasi-farcical display in which they went 2-0 down, ground their way back in and then lost the shootout 12-11. He said, sometimes I hate my players, sometimes I want to quit. A night which gave the world the quite terrible optics of him rocking back and forward in the dugout and scratching away maniacally on the tactics board mid-game. Again, against 4-tier Grimsby Town. It was like watching Nero fiddle while Rome burned, or I guess Rome was slapped by the fish. I've got to say, Raw, I found it, at this point, painful to witness Amorim, one of the coolest, most coveted young managers when he arrived, all smiles. And then 299 days later, just looking bereft, shattered, arguably only in the job because of all the money spent on the squad to make it fit his fundamentalist formation. This was the mostest of most wins already at Old Trafford in August against bloody Burnley. And JJ Rott's mob rocked up to Old Trafford full of confidence. They'd won 2 games in the past week alone. Amorim rocked up in a really, I've got to say, quite clean Manchester United bomber jacket. It was like he'd gone straight to the club shop, one last trip, used his discount card there before it's discontinued. But it should be said, United did set up with real intent here, and Bumo singeing the Clarets goal, 27th minute, huge relief, breakthrough, set piece, Casemiro went Brazilian dude perfect, banking his header off the crossbar, and then Burnley midfielders Josh Cullen and into the net to make it 1-0. Rora, United, even when they go ahead, they're still a Bants club, first club to have their first 2 goals of the season be scored by the other team. For all their signings, own goals still having the biggest impact.
And that is not maybe unimportant. I was at Old Trafford on Saturday, actually, for the game, and they were fine in the first half. Like, Man United did what they should do against Burnley. Burnley weren't bad at all. I thought Leslie Udochukwu played really well in midfield, but United looked fine, no problems, created some chances, decent intensity. But the way it was kind of greeted, the way it was discussed, I think is almost the problem. That they play okay, and suddenly it's, well, United are back. This is exactly what we need. We're turning the corner. Turning the corner now, we're 1-0 up against Burnley. And then, so you're kind of underwhelmed by that, but just because of the way it's been presented. And then the second half happens, and in the second half, they were a total shambles. And quite what happened in between those two things, I have no idea. Part of it is that Burnley got better. But again, Burnley clearly thought, we're only 1-0 down, we're going to get chances.
I mean, there's so many storylines in this one, and we'll have to see how they play out. New signing Mateus Cunha limped off with a hamstring injury. Interesting to see Xerxes, not Shesko, put on instead of him. Mason Mount also taken off precautionarily at half-time, which went Amorim forced to fling on. Reported once away, but then staying. 20-year-old Kobbie Mainoo for his first appearance of the season. United missed chance after chance. I think they had 26-3 overall, shots-wise, and it bit them. 10 minutes at a restart. Burnley broke back. Arcing cross from Jacob Bruma Bone Larson found an unmarked Lyle Foster, went all Mortal Kombat to level it up. Cometh the hour, cometh the man with that cheer pet on his chin, Brian and Bumo. 13 seconds after the restart from that goal, a delicious Diogo Dalot pullback found them. Bumo. By the way, poetically, the man who missed the penalty which handed Grimsby victory. Here he made no mistake, just swivelled, lashed home. First goal for the club he grew up supporting, and arguably the moment they needed it most already. Real human beauty. But this time it was almost cancelled out. Lyle Foster scored an equaliser, VAR'd for offside. I've got to say, VAR had a fractious, nitpicky day. It was all day, a little bit uncalibrated, Raw. But this one, even the photo looked like he was onside, or at worst, level. You think about the dictionary definition of clear and obvious in terms of the mistake that VAR is there to correct. It does feel like it's askew, and in a way, United partially survived because of it.
Yeah, I mean, the margin for error that they're meant to take into consideration appears to have been like the width of someone's shoulder. And you looked at the picture, and they sort of flash the picture up when you're in the stadium, and it's very quick. No one really gives you any chance to kind of study it. The whole thing was very unconvincing, not least as I actually thought the furthest player back was Lenny Yoro, and they didn't seem to take Lenny Yoro into account at all. That could have been an optical illusion because of where you're sitting in the stadium, but it was an unsatisfactory VAR experience, as you say, on a day of unsatisfactory VAR experiences. I'm so glad we're talking about this again, Rog, how I've missed it.
I know, it's not where we want to spend our time. We've got to talk about the transfers,
exactly.
Man. That's all people care about nowadays. Burnley did equalise, but in the dying embers of the game, Jadon Anthony gave a little tug as he ran into the box. I'll just say, as an Everton fan, I've seen him given, I've seen him not given, but a VAR review. Sam Barrett pointed to the spot. Bruno Fernandes, 1 week ago, he was iced from the spot by the referee during his pre-shot routine and missed. Amorim again couldn't look at this penalty. He said later, I knew Bruno would score. I wanted to, quote, enjoy the fans. Okay, Rubes. This time, Portuguese made no mistake, putting one low to Dubravka's right. Raw, 97th minute penalty winning it for United, sparking the sound of approximately 70,000 jaws and bums unclenching simultaneously at Old Trafford, apart from yours. I mean, it is amazing. I watched Bruno down the stretch housing the Burnley players in his moment of victory, which honestly showed you how much it meant to them. There's goalkeeper problems, even with the arrival of new 23-year-old signing. Belgian Sana Lamens, who scouts swear can catch a cross. There's midfield agonies, there's Šeško problems, but a win, by all means necessary. You saw the celebrations at the end. You'd think United had just beaten PSG in the Champions League final, Rule.
Yeah, there was a little bit of discordance, I suppose, between the scale of the celebrations and the actual reality of the victory. You need a 97th minute, very soft penalty to beat Burnley. But at the same time, there's no time for the celebration police, Rog. If people want to celebrate, let them be happy. I'm not sure it suggests that United have turned a corner. And to be fair to Amorim, he said that afterwards. He said, we can only go day by day. He must have realised now, Manchester United's never seen a corner that doesn't look like it can be turned, or whatever the phrase might be. The problem is that it's a long, slow process, and Manchester United aren't a club, and the football ecosystem in which they exist is not an ecosystem that allows you a long, slow process, because as soon as there's a setback, it feels like a crisis. Yeah,
we said this about late era Arsene Wenger, that the club kept turning corners, and all they were doing was like being trapped in one of those MC Escher optical illusions where they're forever just circling the block. Manchester City, then Chelsea next for Amorim. I'd just say, who would want to be a football manager? I think the answer to that is Andoni Iraola. Tottenham 0, Bournemouth 1. Oh, Spurs, didn't we almost have it all? That 2-0 win against City. Perfect start to the season. Xavi Simons arriving midweek, paraded on the field before the game. New hero, $70 million in the sunshine. And then crashing right back down to earth as Bournemouth rolled to a quite convincing 1-0 win, as there can possibly be. Took the lead inside 5 minutes. Evan Nielsen benefiting from a thick deflection off Romero to beat Vicario. First goal Spurs have conceded in Premier League play. Honestly, should have been more for the Cherries. Their pressing was seething. Semenyo, white hot heat. Vicario had to keep his team in the game. I was surprised watching this that Thomas Frank kept the same starting 11, kept the same tactics to a large degree used against City, which really played into Bournemouth's hands. They didn't want possession. They could just charge through the Spurs midfield at will on the counter. Took 68 minutes for Spurs just to have a shot on goal. They were booed off at half-time. That's how impotent they looked in this one. Frank in the second half had to ask the fans to calm down, which is astonishing in many ways, how quickly things can change in modern football. Spurs' expected goals was a putrid 0.17, but Raw, this was Tottenham's first defeat in the league since Thomas Frank took charge. I think you could make the case, couldn't you? Stay calm, stay with me here. This loss almost could be a positive because it prevents, what we did with Nuno Espirito Santo. Won his first 3 games, he's going to take us to the moon. Ange, the first 10 games, just felt ecstatic. This is almost like a statement. We are still a work in progress. There's going to be great days. There's going to be times of challenge. Even with the arrival of PSG's live wire, Randall Kalamuane at the deadline day. This is going to be a grapple on not instant top 4 wire-to-wire challenges here.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest. I think there's an argument that it is quite helpful to just restore expectations, to keep people's feet on the ground. Obviously, it hurts, and I think the nature of the performance is quite worrying, how toothless they looked, how easily Bournemouth broke through, how comprehensively Spurs were outplayed by Bournemouth is bad. That's all bad. But yeah, the idea that it prevents Spurs getting carried away, I think that has some logic to it.
Perverse logic. I know Spurs fans, stay the course. Huge love to all of you. And huge respect to Bournemouth again, and Andoni Iraola in particular. His team have lost almost their entire back line, but have played so bloody smart, so clinically. I think they've lost only 3 of the last 15 away games. And this must have felt so great for Iraola. Tottenham have been linked to him heavily. At the beginning of the summer, they went Thomas Frank instead. Iraola in this one was almost like, I don't know if you remember the old quiz games on television, where even when you lost in the final, they still wheeled in the big prize that a contestant could have won but failed to, like a boat or a jet ski, and said, here's what you could have won. Watching Andoni Iraola do Thomas Frank just felt like this. You could have had him.
There is an element of that. Iraola has always kind of made it clear that he sees out his contracts. But given the way they've started the season, given the way they're playing, given how easily he's adapted to losing his entire central defence, the biggest signings in Spain and France this summer, Bournemouth central defenders, if you're a club who might be looking for a manager next season, he is surely top of your list.
I can see a world in which Andoni Iraola is the next Manchester City manager. Clip it, freezing cold take it, celebrate it, whatever, in the years to come. But from Andoni to another management grandmaster, Chelsea 2, Fulham 0. Chelsea, Cole Palmer FC no more. Our Cole out injured with groin knack. New signing, Alejandro Garnacho watching on with new blonde Barnett shining in the stands. Chelsea continue to be football's great day traders. In many ways, they trade talent, I realise, watching this window. A bit like Todd Burley oversees his baseball organisation, the Dodgers, trading minor league prospects en masse. And the game began frenetically. Fulham so bloody well organised. Another team, this is the difference in the Premier League over the past 5 years. The incredible managers who are almost everywhere. Marco Silva's team, so well drilled. They let Chelsea onto them. Chelsea almost like pressing their way into that Fulham backline like teeth into clay when you're at the dentist. It was Fulham who thought they'd taken a lead. A delirious moment. We have to talk about it really quickly, Raw. 18-year-old Josh King ran off the field to deliver a fine finish, but the goal was ruled off by VAR. Quite cruelly, spotted a stamp during the course of a spin by Muniz. Did not feel like a clear and obvious error. Looked more like a man putting his foot down than another player putting their leg under it. It was all so bloody subjective, and this one felt painful for the kid, finishing his first Fulham goal with a flourish. VAR official Michael Salisbury was replaced for Sunday's game at Anfield after PGMOL acknowledged an error was made. Raw, I mean, this is serious. It's slightly flippant. Who watches The Watchmen was what I wrote. Robbie Mustoe over here called it one of, quote, the worst decisions he's seen since NBC has been broadcasting the Premier League since 2013. Yeah,
because it was so unfluent in football. I think that was the problem. It was blindingly obvious to anyone who watches football, plays football, thinks about football, likes transfers, that Muniz had the ball and he happened to put his foot down at a place where Chelsea player, I think it was Chalobah, wasn't it? just so happened at that very moment to put his leg. There was absolutely no intent to foul him. It wasn't a tackle. It wasn't dangerous play. It was just two people on the pitch at the same time. And occasionally, you get things like that. If the goal had been given, I don't think Chelsea would have complained. I don't think Chelsea would have kind of complained that Chalobah had been fouled by Muniz in the build-up. It felt technocratic and nitpicky and like the very definition of what VAR is not meant to do. But, and this is a conversation that everyone's had a million times, Rog, it's pretty clear now, isn't it, that VAR can't help itself. That's the problem. If the technology's there, we will use it. The referees there is something that they just can't stop using it. If it's there, they don't want to get, and it's out of a kind of, I think, quite an admirable aim, which is not to have any mistakes, but they just can't resist it.
It's like Isaac Asimov sci-fi where the machines have taken over. It's not just not football literate, the decision. It was also not literate from anyone that's got an older brother, where they grab your hand and slap yourself in the face with your own hand and say, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself. It was hard to watch. It was hard emotionally, I think, for Fulham to recover from, especially because at the stroke of half-time, reminder, number 21,723, why football is the cruelest of games. Chelsea took the lead in the 9th of 8 minutes added on at the death of a half. They failed to dominate. Off a corner, the turn into a blue Arsenal, and the other side of the break, another long VAR check for a penalty, ultimately converted by Enzo. Chelsea had a 2-0 lead. They honestly didn't, I think even Chelsea fans would say, didn't quite deserve it. Which was an agony for Fulham. Again, so well coached, so well drilled, so bloody fearless, tactically and psychologically by Marco Silva. They had to leave empty-handed. Serenade of, you're not fit to referee, and possibly the poshest accents a football ground will ever hear. From our Discord channel, at T Cook said, you do have to admit, after all the hard times their fans have endured, it's difficult not to feel happy for a venture capital firm like Clearlake enjoying a bit of undeserved success.
Yeah, and I saw someone say after the game that Fulham won't be the last team that go to Stamford Bridge this season, lose, and not really understand how it's happened. There is a little bit of that about Chelsea. Again, I wonder if there's an element of if you put enough quality on the pitch, maybe the system doesn't always need to be the most coherent. Not a fan of the way that Clearlake trade players. I think that ethically there is an issue there. I agree with you. It's clearly inspired by baseball. I think the same approach. But it does feel as though Chelsea are building something. They might even be building two things, one football team and one trading operation. It feels like those two things may well be quite separate. But they are gradually getting further ahead of where they were every single season. But they will need to be a little bit more convincing, I think, just because the Premier League is so competitive, that you need to have a really clear idea of what you're doing, and I'm not sure they have that yet.
I did love the meme, finest one of the transfer window, the photograph of Todd Burley texting to Todd Burley, the same photo but reversed, saying, do you want to buy Chilwell? Negotiating hard. Todd Burley, yes, I will, for Strasbourg, the other club who wins. That is the modern transfer window. Also nice to see Timothy Chalamet watching this game in a role of his lifetime as a Chelsea fan. Martin Tyler went off on one in comms. It was really glorious. He called Wonka, I crap you not, Martin Tyler called Wonka one of my favourite movies of all time, which I just...
Wow.
I just love...
The new one?
Yes. I mean, just amazing.
I mean, it's good. The new one's fine. It's a good film.
I'll shout
but
at
it's
the
not
television.
the old one.
I'm like, Tyler, can you tell us what you thought of the Dylan biopic? For God's sake, start doing movie reviews, Mark. I would die for those. Chalamet, there's rumours from our Discord at Cletus Jump saying, is Timothy Chalamet set to star in the new Cucurella biopic? We can only hope. In other games, Leeds 0, Newcastle 0. What a dreadful game. One in which it honestly fulfilled incredibly American stereotypical football tropes. That if you had a skeptic friend watching a game with you, please God, do not make it this one. Poor Newcastle, hearts broken earlier in the week by a child. Liverpool's Rio on Monday. They limped into this one. Blunt, robust, rain-wet match. Honestly felt like watching a midweek game that was from February, ripped from just dull old like makeup game football without the freedom fighting Isak alongside them. They looked utterly bereft. This was just two blunt teams. Managed just, I think, 3 shots on goal between them. I will say my heart aches watching Dominic Calvert-Lewin trying to find his floundering confidence and self-belief. God bless to you, DCL, you beauty. But Leeds, 4 points. Larry Nance Jr. said we would have bitten your arm off for that after the first 3 games if you offered it. Just 1 goal, but never mind the quality. Feel the points total. I'm actually taping with Larry and TJ McConnell, 2 Leeds co-owners, coming on to talk about them. Their fans sang Isak to the pool, ole, ole. And indeed, off he went, Raw. I don't know if you've heard. To me, Newcastle ultimately have become winners. Not of a game of football, but of an awful lot of money that makes, I think, PSR threat to go away for a long time, $176 million. I did love the brevity of the Newcastle farewell statement for the man who scored the winning goal in the cup final of their dreams. 37 words of a very cold clip farewell. But you're the man who knows modern Liverpool's success can be traced back to the biblical moment. Coutinho was sold to Barcelona for 142 million, which ushered in the age of Virgil van Dijk and Alisson. Raw, Liverpool fans will be bereft in this moment of chaos, this moment of fear. But they've already begun to rebuild. 5'9" Johan Wieser arriving, and the German 6'6" star Nick Woltemade, who is going to be fascinating to watch. He may have been their 4th or 5th choice, which has been kind, but he is intriguing. His nickname is 2 meter Messi, which I love because he's like a big beanpole with an exquisite touch, kind of creator, goal scorer, hybrid. Bayern wanted him. He's going to get quite the kicking of welcome in the Premier League, but I can't wait to see him play.
If you take away the whole Isak thing, Newcastle have had a really good window. They've, which I know sounds silly.
Yeah, it's like Abraham Lincoln at the theatre stuff.
Yeah, great night at the theatre. Apart from that, Jacob Ramsey, I think, is a great signing. They've strengthened every area of their team. They've brought in Ramsdale as competition for Pope. They've signed Malik Thiaw from Milan, and central defensive sort of reinforcement. Ramsey is an all-purpose midfielder. Elanga is a Premier League quality winger. They've got Harvey Barnes fit. Anthony Gordon's still there. The issue was Isak. In hindsight, I wonder if Newcastle might think it would all have been a lot easier if they'd just sold Isak in July, rather than hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. It feels like, and I've not been as close to this situation as other journalists, but it does feel like it's been pretty obvious for quite a long time that he really doesn't want to play for Newcastle. And maybe they should have listened to that rather than, I think, kind of allowing their pride to get in the way, if I'm honest. Woltemade is clearly a very promising footballer. He has a different skill set to quite a lot of players. That can be an advantage. I think Johan Wisser's overpriced because of the circumstances, but he scored loads of goals in the Premier League. He will score goals for Newcastle. They will like him. There's no resale value, but do you know what? Sometimes you have to do that. And yeah, the bigger thing is the sale of Isak buys them all the PSR headroom they could ever want for the next few years. They should be able to transfer that into building that squad into one that can certainly compete in the Premier League and the Champions League at the same time, and possibly kick on to become genuine title contenders. That's what they need to do. And yeah, do you know what? For all the complaints of Newcastle fans, that's what Liverpool had to do. It's what Tottenham had to do. You sometimes have to sell your one big star so that you can build your team. That's how you run a business. Doesn't make them the exception, just makes them the rule.
There's another narrative. In a way, you could say Everton are still trying to recover from the loss of Wayne Rooney the first time, but we won't go there. I will just say we had Brighton CEO Paul Barber come on, the gold standard of a well-run club, and he said that this is a life truth. He said the day you start searching for your next manager is the day you appoint your new one. And using that wisdom for strikers, I think ultimately it's the chaos of the transaction rather than the transaction itself, which would panic me in the medium term if I was a Newcastle fan. But Godspeed to them, and I cannot wait to watch 2 meter Messi take the field in the Premier League. Nottingham Forest 0, West Ham 3. What? A game, unpredictable outcome, exploding late, and thankfully in the blast radius, it was West Ham's flailing manager Graham Potter who was still standing with his first win of the season in his hands. Jared Bowen propelled the perfect win with Lucas Paquetá scoring. Did a celebration in which he slammed down the phone on transfer requests. Yes, this is who we are now. And even the lively 33-year-old Callum Wilson scored. Forest woeful. That smoke around the future of Nuno Espirito Santo as manager will continue to smoulder after this. I can only use the word collapse, but Raw, the moment of the game came when the criminally underrated Jared Bowen beat the entire Forest backline, ran half the field with one of the greatest dribbles you will see. And then at last, as he pulled his foot back to shoot on goal, Callum Wilson decided, I'm the number 9 here, slammed in, chaos ensued. The ball went past the post. Instead of Jared Bowen having a all-time worldie, which I think is the name we legally have to use for it, were you just like, I love that selfishness in my number 9?
Yeah, that's what you want. You want a striker who just takes the ball off his teammates' feet at all times. Yeah, it's quite hard not to feel sorry for Bowen in that situation. But I guess the flip side is that who would have seen West Ham coming out of August feeling good about themselves?
God bless. Hug yourself tonight to sleep, West Ham fans. There's joy. There is a real team there. I would say Graham Potter's redemption story would be one of the most remarkable and I think deeply meaningful. If he regains the nice guy mantle that he had at Brighton, God bless, I would love. Aston Villa 0, Crystal Palace 3. What? Palace extended their 14-game unbeaten run. But this was a match in which the football, as it should be, was totally overshadowed by the craziness of the transfer window. Began with the most bewildered pre-match press conference you'll ever see. Unai Emery giving just the same two-word answer to any question. Emi Martinez was then rumoured to be headed for United. And Unai Emery, if you didn't see it, it's on our Instagram, simply decided to say the name of his second-string replacement to every question. The reason for his absence? Marco Bizot. Where is Martinez? Marco Bizot. Will he be your future goalkeeper? Marco Bizot. Okay, your time is over. Thank you. That was just Unai, frustrated in the transfer window, aware that the chaos was from it, as it should do, was permeating the on-field play. Huge respect to Emi Martinez, who ended up staying and signing a new contract. Few players have said goodbye to their fans more than Emi Martinez. If there's a stat, XG leaving, not leaving data, he is world class. Give him some kind of trophy you can make sweet love to in front of a crowd. He's like a one-man Wolf of Wall Street meme. I am not leaving. But here Palace romped. And the story is, Mark Gahey seemed like he'd lashed his final goal for Palace in his last game. Incredible poetry. But then yesterday, deadline day, reportedly 3 p.m. English time, 4 hours before the transfer deadline, slam shut trademark. The principles of a deal with Liverpool have been agreed. I think he'd done a medical, but then it fell through. Reports that manager Olivier Glasner threatened to resign if his captain was sold. He's kind of telegraphed that his fate and Gahey's fate were intertwined. Even though Gahey only has a year left on his contract, lots of talk ultimately about how players will now be encouraged, as if they needed that encouragement, to act like Isak and Wisa and essentially go on strike and not act like modest model professionals like Gahey. Is that the moral lesson in life, Raw? That if you're a baby in a stroller and you have toys in your hand, you gots to chuck them.
Gots to chuck the toys, Roger. No, not necessarily, because Eberechi Eze got his move and he didn't do what Isak did. There are plenty of players who have moved this summer who have done so relatively amicably. The Gahey situation is an unusual one. It's quite an extreme case because Palace had allowed it to roll on to this point where if they sold him, they would also lose their manager. It seems like Glasner was at least kind of intimating that he might quit if they sold Gahey to Liverpool. But at the same time, that now means that Crystal Palace, who are not kind of backed by a sovereign wealth fund, have basically had to turn down £35 million for a player who may well leave for nothing next summer, or for even if he leaves in January for half of that, it's cost them a lot of money. And I think what's really odd about it is I get why Palace allowed him to get to this point where there was a year left on his contract, because Palace could quite reasonably say, we've won 2 trophies in the last year. Has that not convinced you to stay? What I don't understand is why at the start of the summer, when it became clear that Mark Gahey still wanted to go, Crystal Palace didn't go out and start signing players to play in central defence instead. It was almost as though they were... And again, this is not based on information beyond that which is in the public realm. But I wonder whether they were kind of trusting how nice a person Gahey was, that he wouldn't leave them in the lurch.
Maybe they made the mistake, Roy, of not getting caught up in transfer window gossip, and they didn't know. They didn't know he wanted to leave.
They hadn't noticed that their captain was about to... I mean, the thing...
Yeah, they hadn't heard the news. They were too football.
It was so far advanced that Gahey had made a goodbye video for Palace, which is extraordinary. I think he will still use it. I think he'll go... My guess is he'll go in January, when Palace have had time to line up a replacement. He'll have played football for 4 months, which will help his World Cup credentials. Palace will go and get either a replacement, a backup, a couple of people to cover for him. And to be honest, at that stage, moving to Liverpool might be not a bad thing, because if he doesn't play every week, all of a sudden Mark Guehi's fresh for the World Cup. But it's been a very messy circumstance. I think the bigger lesson of the window is that because the Premier League's clubs are all so rich, none of them have to sell, which will make situations like Wissa and Isak more likely. Does the players have to use whatever power they have to get out?
God bless. Remember the moral children watching. Choose bad behaviour every single time. Reminds me of Julian Lescott when he was an Everton stalwart and Manchester City wanted him. David Moyes wouldn't let him leave. Started him. I think it was against Arsenal. And just Julian Lescott just watched the attackers just walk past him. I think we lost like 7-0, 7-1. That's the way you do it if you're listening, Guehi. Godspeed in every regard. And finally, talking about Everton, Wolves 2. What? Everton Football Club 3. Jack Grealish back in Birmingham, where the Wolves proper hate him. I've got to say, I feared this game. I didn't want to make it clear. When you learn that Wolves had 0.0 goals going into it, it was the perfect rational case of why I thought they were going to do it. Even more so when I found out they hadn't won one of their last 11 home games in August. I was just like, oh my God, we are going to get slapped. But that negativity, which normally becomes life truth, burnt off almost immediately. Dewsbury Hall and Dye, above all Jack. Beautiful, beautiful Jack Grealish. Raw, this is strange. They played silky football, liquid blue football. So many footballers who are comfortable with the ball at their feet. I'm not used to it. We can also now score the goals. It took just 7 minutes off a recycled corner, ball fed back. Jack Grealish nodded back with his delicious hair fringe flapping in the brummy sky. Beto nodded home from close range. Jack Grealish, I screamed at the television, I'm never going to dance again. Guilty feet have got Jack Grealish. Here's what I want to know. If you're Pep, is this humiliating? Or is it absolutely nothing to do with you watching the resurrection of St. Jack? Because you're a complex football systems man. Jack could never comprehend them. Can Jack Grealish, just guess what I'm asking, can he soar this season without it looking bad on City? Or do we just have to say Grealish is just cut out to be a cult hero on a mid-level club?
That's what Guardiola will look at it as, that Grealish needs to be in a team that's built around him, that plays to his strengths, and that wasn't something that would happen at City. But I think from the outside, most people will think that the better Grealish does, the worse it looks for Guardiola. Because surely part of your job as a manager is to get the most out of a player that talented. And he, for the last couple of years, failed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we had Erling Haaland online during the game calling Grealish Jack De Bruyne, which was really fascinating. Life felt amazing. Nothing could go wrong now, which of course meant it did. Wolves got them back into the game. The Korean guy, as Pep called him, Hwang, smashed the ball home. It felt for a moment, hello darkness, my old friend. It's incredible how in football the good vibes can just instantly burn off. But then, woo, we did it again. Raw, you know me, I don't like to be hyperbolic. I'm starting to think we win in the league. I've got to be candid. We have no Europe to distract us. Hear me out here. Greal's calves are on fire. Beto, unstoppably potent. And Dye, the most stunning footballer to wear blue, I think, in the modern period. The man who got a yellow card for scoring against Brighton, doing the seagull celly, now netting against Wolves and doing the big cat. He's both good at football and hilarious. Jack flicked the ball to Kieran Dewsbury Hall, who clapped the ball decisively into the roof of the net. Raw, it felt like I was watching AI. I'm not going to lie. Jack Grealish, this is unbelievable. First Everton player to provide 2 assists in back-to-back Premier League games ever, which is wonderful and insane and brilliant and sad. Come and join the bandwagon if you're watching, people on Everton. There's room for everybody. We're going to the moon. Also, just 34 more points we need before we feel safe. Do you think about the bandwagon fans who joined Everton because they just really love points deductions and they're now completely confused because, what? We're good at football?
They're the Premier League's great entertainers, Rog. We have come through the dogs of war period. And now we're back in School of Science, the eternal sort of balance of Evertonian existence that normally ends up as School of Dogs.
It's a triangle, though, Raw. There's a triangle.
Science.
There's the School of Science, there's the Dogs of War, there's also the utter woeful abject crap as the third and probably most popular in the last 10 years.
That's what I like to refer to as the School of War period. That's when it's neither. It's either the Dodge of Science or the School of War.
It was a school of science, but we just played truant the whole time.
Might have been the school. In fact, it could be Dodge of War, School of Science, School of Dogs. There you go.
Yeah, the school. I'd love a school of dogs. Oh my god,
that'd be amazing. A school of dogs.
I'd never. God, I wish I'd gone to a school of dogs. Who are your best mates? The dogs.
But they are. Everton look. That you mentioned Potter, like Graham Potter's like transformation. Potential transformation into good Graham Potter again being kind of one of the uplifting Premier League storylines of the season. The most uplifting conceivable storyline of the season is David Moyes, Grandpa David, in his last, presumably like his last act as an elite manager, suddenly going all Brazil 1970, great entertainers, School of Dogs, just having a whale of a time with all these creative players. They've got Tyler Diblin to come in. It's all there. This is Everton having fun.
I know, and at the same time, Raw, let me tell you, on one level, I'm just like, those 3 goals, each magic in their own way. By the way, if they'd been sprinkled across an entire season, we'd say that was an incredible season. Remember those 3 goals? They were in one bloody game, and I can't describe how wild that felt as a man who's watched a lot of terrible football. Yes, it was against Wolves, so we're going to say we're woeful, and yes, we almost crapped the bed by conceding late, and kind of it got weirdly nervy because, St. David Moyes doesn't do subs, and we do like to drop deep and hold on. But final whistle felt so good, but at the same time, Raw, part of it was like, I love a good dive bar in life. This was like, I go to the same dive bar for years, and then suddenly turning up one night and finding out it's somehow been remade into the hottest club in town. DJ Grill's just in the corner spinning tracks, and you're like, what? It's not what I'm used to. It's not why I go. I go because this is my dive bar. I'm imagining what it'd be like if your partner had an extreme makeover, and you're like, okay, I'll try and embrace these radical differences. We sexy now.
It's a bit like your dive bar getting turned into a really upscale pizza chain. That's what's happening to you, Rog. Just eat the pizza.
I love pizza chains.
Eat the pizza. Just go to Sbarro and have a pizza. That's as upscale as it.
Bite your arm off for Everton to be a Sbarro, or however it's pronounced.
I think this season particularly, that is the identity Everton need. The challenge is going to be, Rog, I know you'll want to end on a negative for Everton.
Yeah, please.
The challenge is, at some point, Everton will lose a football match. And they will lose a football match in a way that David Moyes doesn't like.
Will we know?
And as soon as that happens, Moyes will be tempted to just shut it all down. Dodge of War again. No more fun. That's it. That's your lot. Summer's over. It's raining again in Britain. Here we go. And the challenge will be what happens at that point, where the Moyes is prepared to say, actually, do you know what? They will win more games than they lose if they play like this with Grealish and Dewsbury Hall and Diblin and Giai. Or does he revert to type?
Oh my God, you've just chilled me to the bone. It reminds me of like the Carlo Ancelotti season where we started off so well. James Rodriguez just doing, Jack Grealish things before Jack Grealish. I had Carlo on the show. And I said, Carlo, how's this going to end? It's like, we've got you, Carlo. You've come. And you brought the dragons. Game of Thrones was a television show, kids, back then that was really popular. And Carlo just leant into the microphone and chuckled and goes, yes, I have the dragons. But winter is coming. Oh my God. Oh, don't want to go there. So let's wrap the show up with a letter from a GFOP. This one from Adrienne Bender from Boston, Mass. She wrote to us at meninblazers@gmail.com. You can do the same. We love your letters. They sustain us. Raw. Do the honours.
I think Adrian also wrote to the correspondent, which you can do as well. We welcome correspondence at the correspondent as well, Rog. But to us, she wrote, I'm a proud Tottenham supporter from outside of Boston, Massachusetts. A former Postacogluite, I can now say I will join whatever cult Thomas Frank is promoting. Although he seems like just a normal guy, so maybe no cult joining is necessary. That's how they get you. My question today is on the songs that are sung at football matches. As an American, our sports fans' creativity is very lacklustre and results in some pretty poor game day chants. I would love to know how songs are created at football matches. I know clubs have chants that have been around for ages, but how are new chants or songs distributed among the masses? How does everyone know what to sing and when? Is there an underground society where club members meet up to bounce lyrics off of each other? Thank you for everything you do for the sport. I love listening every week to your insights and humour. P.S. Rory, has anyone told you that you have one of those relaxing voices that could be put on those apps people can listen to in order to fall asleep? Could be your next career path. Don't know how to take that bit, Rog. Not sure about that.
Take it as a compliment.
It doesn't sound like a compliment for someone who's podcasting.
Raw, can we get to the core of the question and move you away from that sly insult, which I love, Adrian? I actually have no idea. This question reminds me how good your singing voice is, but do the honours. Explain.
Well, it's case by case to an extent. So there's maybe two examples that I can give. One is the song that everybody now knows as LA, LA, LA. Arsenal have a version. Forest, I think, have a version. Villa have a version. But Liverpool introduced that to England. But its journey before that, I wrote this piece for the New York Times ages ago, and it's one of my favourite things that I've ever written, because I had to trace it all the way back. And it starts out in Italy. It's an Italian song called L'estate sta finendo, which which means summer is finishing. Which was...
Does it mean that? I thought that meant my piss is boiling.
L'estate sta finendo. But it got picked up by ultras at like a fourth division team in Italy, and then turned into a chant called Un giorno all'improvviso at Napoli. I think it then went to Porto. Little bit of a detour to South America, and Liverpool fans, I think, got it from Porto and took the tune and then made up the lyrics themselves. And that kind of showcases one route, which is that songs are adapted somewhere else in Europe, often in Argentina as well, and then picked up by teams, and they become kind of standards.
It's like a Broadway play being workshopped off Broadway.
Yeah, a little bit. And you tend to find that Italy, Portugal, maybe Spain and Argentina, as I say, are the places where these songs come from. To get into Britain, they often come through Celtic. That's one of the stranger things, is that Celtic will pick them up, and then the English teams borrowed them from Celtic. But then the other one is the Federico Chiesa song, which is kind of Liverpool's standard at the moment. Again, Arsenal now have their version of it. That seemed to emerge organically. That I think there were videos online, on forums, on social media, on Reddit, kind of November last year, of fans singing that song, which obviously is a Dean Martin standard. The Michael Bublé version of Sway is maybe the most famous. There was a famous one in Britain in the 90s by a band called Shaft.
Did Bublé sing it before or after? He's a big Chiesa fan, then. Bublé.
He is a big. He got into Liverpool during the Patrick Birdie years, Michael Bublé. But as we all did, that kind of flourished online. And then by around kind of late April, the fans had started to sing it in stadiums at away games. And because it's such a catchy tune, it caught on. And by that stage, it goes from the away fans to the home fans. And at that point, it is then kind of in the songbook. Each song has its own journey, but I think often the lyrics come from one person, and the best ones, or the catchiest ones, maybe the easiest to remember ones, they're the ones that catch on.
I mean, the pub used to be the place where songs used to be learnt pre-game in the old pre-internet era. I mean, it was about fans, I'd say, libating themselves into full voice. I remember football songs used to be, there used to be very few, they're just classic tropes that every football fan knew, and just kind of amended the lyrics to fit into the classics. Like, there's only one, insert player's name here, or when the, insert name of club, go marching in. Or by far the greatest team. There's just like, you just have to jam words into that. But now it happens, as Raw says, via social media. I once interviewed, it was a beautiful interview. It's still up somewhere. It was hard for me to do, to be candid. I interviewed Liverpool bard Jamie Webster, guy who popularised such tunes as Mo Salah, Egyptian King. He told me an amazing story about Virgil van Dijk's song, which I think is probably the way songs spread now, but like this. The song he's sent anyway, that one. He told me, he said they were going to an away game at Huddersfield. He described the scene. And he goes, I was with 10 drunk scousers on the bus. And they were listening to the radio. Pogue's Dirty Old Town, that fantastic song, was on the radio. And he just started to... I love the way Jamie brings his guitar, by the way, on the bus. It's world-class commitment to the art. Just started strumming along to it. The lyrics kind of, I guess, found themselves as he did so. Right there, one of his friends shot a video on the bus of Jamie singing this new song, which he just kind of magicked on the journey. They put it online. The local paper, the Liverpool Echo, retweeted it. And Jamie said with a real marvel that by the time they got off the bus at Huddersfield and walked into the ground, he said the entire Liverpool away end was already singing the song he just composed like half an hour before. It happens at the speed of light now, Raw. In that spirit, I want to thank GFOP Peter Dahl, who took my suggestion that Jack Grealish is the hero Everton have been aching for, in the way Bonnie Tyler needed a hero. Sent in a beautiful chant, which I will not sing, but it's called I Need a Greelo. The lyrics are, I'm holding out for a Greelo till the end of the night. You know that he's fast, and you know that he's strong, and his calves are larger than life. Ro, what do you think about that one? Be honest.
I think there are certain players whose names don't fit easily into songs, and that's why they don't have chants. There is one at Liverpool at the moment who scored a free kick this weekend, Dominic Szoboszlai. It's difficult to get that into a song. There is a version of American Pie, stands with that, but it's not really caught on. Fear that Grealish might be in the same...
I need a Greelo! Oh my God, it's so great. I love it. I'm in. Peter Dahl...
I think you can work with Jack. Maybe something about Jack. That's where you need to...
Don't police our chants, please. I still think we should be doing something for Careless Whisper for Jack. But Adrian... send us your postal. Peter Dahl, send us yours too. We'll send you both the coveted Men in Blazers patch. Keep sending your letters, questions to Rory and me to meninblazers@gmail.com. That is it for today. We're in an international break. We don't even have Premier League football to keep us going, Rob, but we'll have a ton of content dropping this week, including interviews with the quite magical Serginho Dest. Clint Dempsey and I will be on live after Saturday night's game against South Korea. Please, God, let us have a modicum of joy. Raw, huge love to you, Crown Prince of Harrogate.
It's been a pleasure. I'm just glad we've all survived the transfer window, and we can now just go into hibernation until the transfer started in January.
We'll live off the meagre crumbs of Premier League football, Raw. This is Rog, sending you big love. Let's not take a second of watching football together for granted. And courage.